What would you do if the person you trusted most shattered your dreams in front of 300 people? Would you run? Would you hide? Or would you do what Natalie Rivers did, turn that devastation into the most brilliant revenge story you've ever heard? Before we dive into this incredible tale of justice, let us know in the comments where you're watching from today. Natalie stands at the altar of Rosewood Manor, his hands trembling as she grips her grandmother's vintage pearl bracelet. The antique clasp feels warm against her wrist, worn smooth by 3 generations of Rivers women on their wedding days. Sunlight streams through stained glass windows, painting rainbow patterns across her ivory dress. 300 guests fill the pews behind her. Her parents beam from the front row. The string quartet plays Pachelbel's canon with practiced precision. Everything's perfect, everything except the groom. Father McKenna clears his throat for the 3rd time. The wedding coordinator whispers urgently into her headset. Natalie's maid of honor squeezes her shoulder with false comfort. 20 minutes late becomes 30. 30 becomes 40-5. Then the whispers start rippling through the crowd like wildfire. A guest in the back pew holds up her phone. The screen shows a social media post that makes Natalie's blood freeze. Her fiancé Tyler Blackwood stands on a tropical beach, arms wrapped around another woman. The caption reads, "Sorry, babe. Found my real soulmate in Cancun. Check your email." Pearl bracelet suddenly feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. Natalie's phone buzzes. An email from Tyler sent 20 minutes ago while she was waiting at the altar for him to appear. "Nat, I can't do this. Melissa and I have been together for months. We're getting married next week in Mexico. I know this isn't how you wanted to find out, but honestly, you were always too serious anyway. The venue is paid for, so enjoy the party. Consider it my wedding gift." Tatha sanctuary erupts. Gasps echo off vaulted ceilings. Yes, grain there. Next, trying to see what's happening. Cameras flash as people capture her humiliation for social media. Her father rises from his seat, face red with rage. Her mother covers her mouth in horror. The wedding coordinator frantically signals the quartet to stop playing, but Natalie doesn't. She doesn't cry. She doesn't collapse. Instead, she walks slowly to the microphone Father McKenna was going to use for the ceremony. Her heels click against marble floors with measured precision. The pearl bracelet catches the light as she adjusts the microphone stand. "Ladies and gentlemen," she says, her voice carrying clearly through the sound system. It appears there's been a change of plans. The crowd falls silent. Tyler has decided to marry someone else today in Mexico. While I was here waiting for him, she holds up her phone, showing the beach photo. But you know what? I'm not devastated. I'm grateful. Murmurs ripple through the pews. I'm grateful because today, I've learned exactly who Tyler Blackwood really is. And more importantly, I learned who I am. It's someone who deserves better than a coward who can't even break up with someone. Face to face, she looks directly at Tyler's parents, sitting pale and mortified in the second row. The reception is still happening. The food is already prepared. The band is set up. So if you'd like to stay and celebrate with me not a wedding, but a new beginning, please join me in the ballroom. Half the guests stand immediately, then more. Within minutes, nearly everyone is on their feet, applauding. The pearl bracelet warms against her skin, as if her grandmother is somehow there, proving. But as Natalie walks down the aisle toward her unexpected party, she has no idea that this public humiliation is only the beginning. Tyler's family owns half the businesses in town. His father sits on the country club board, the hospital board, and the Chamber of Commerce. And they're about to make sure. Everyone knows that calling off a wedding is one thing but embarrassing. The Blackwood name is quite another. The pearl bracelet seems to pulse gently against her wrist as she enters the ballroom, as if it knows something she doesn't. As if it's been waiting for this moment for decades. What Natalie doesn't know yet is that her grandmother left her more than just jewelry. Much more. And before this story ends, the Blackwood family will discover that some legacies run deeper than money or social standing. Some legacies change everything. The attacks start. Monday morning, Natalie arrives at Hillcrest Elementary, where she teaches 3rd grade to find Principal Davidson waiting in her classroom. His expression is carefully neutral. She knows him well enough to see the discomfort in his eyes. "Natalie," he says, settling into one of the tiny student desks. We need to talk. She sets down her coffee and lesson plans. The pearl bracelet catches fluorescent light as she sits across from him. About what? There have been complaints. From parents. They're saying Saturday's ... incident ... showed poor judgment. That it reflects badly on the school. Which parents? She asks, though she already knows. He sighs. The Blackwoods sit on the school board, Natalie. Tyler's mother called an emergency meeting last night. She's concerned about your emotional stability, whether you're fit to teach children right now. The pearl bracelet feels heavier on her wrist. I handled a devastating situation with grace and dignity, Natalie says. I turned potential chaos into something positive. How exactly does that show poor judgment? You embarrassed their family in front of the entire town? You made their son look like a villain on social media? Their son abandoned me at the altar to marry another woman? He made himself look like a villain. Davidson rubs his temples. I'm not saying I agree with them, but they're threatening to pull their funding from the new playground project, the music program, the library renovation. So you're here to what? Fire me? I'm here to suggest you take some time off. Let things cool down. Natalie stands, her chair scraping against linoleum. I'm not taking time off for being the victim of someone else's cruelty. Just think about it, Davidson says as she walks toward the door. Think about what's best for everyone, but the day only gets worse. At lunch, she stops by the bank to discuss her savings account. The loan officer who was supposed to meet with her about buying a house sends his assistant instead. The assistant explains that given recent circumstances, they'll need to reevaluate her application. Recent circumstances? Natalie asks. The assistant fidgets with his pen. There are concerns about your financial stability, your ability to make long-term commitments. At the grocery store, conversations stop when she enters. People stare, whisper, point. The cashier who usually chats about her weekend plans suddenly becomes fascinated by scanning barcodes. Her hairdresser calls to reschedule her appointment indefinitely. The yoga studio where she teaches evening classes sends an email. They're reducing class sizes and won't need her services anymore by Tuesday. The social media posts start appearing, photos from Saturday taken without her permission. Comments calling her desperate, attention-seeking, pathetic. One creates a meme using her image with the caption, "When you're so desperate for a wedding, you throw one for yourself." Tyler's friends share articles about women who can't take a hint and the dangers of emotional manipulation. But it's Wednesday that breaks her heart completely. She's grading papers after school when her classroom door opens. Mrs. Henderson enters, leading her 8-year-old daughter Emma by the hand. Emma has been Natalie's student for 3 months. One of her favorites, Miss Rivers, Mrs. Henderson says, her voice tight. Emma won't be in your class anymore. We're transferring her to Mrs. Morrison's room. Natalie kneels to Emma's level. Hey, sweetheart, is everything okay? Emma looks at her mother, then back at Natalie. My mom says you're not a good teacher anymore because you made bad choices. The words hit like physical blows. Mrs. Henderson's face flushes red, but she doesn't correct her daughter. She just takes Emma's hand and leaves. That evening, Natalie sits in her apartment, staring at the pearl bracelet on her coffee table. She's taken it off for the first time since Saturday. It seems smaller now, less significant, just old jewelry. From a different time, her phone buzzes with a text from her sister in Portland. Jess saw the news online. Come stay with me for a while. Get away from all this. For the first time since Saturday, Natalie considers running. She picks up the bracelet, examining the intricate pearl pattern. Her grandmother wore this when she married. Grandfather, in 1952, wore it again when she renewed their vows for their 50th anniversary. Grandma.
Ow.
Rose never ran from anything, but Rose never faced anything like this either, as she fastens. The clasp around her wrist again. Natalie notices something she's never seen before. In the right light, at the right angle, there's an engraving on the inside of the clasp. Tiny letters, almost microscopic. She gets a magnifying glass from her desk, drawer, and peers closer. The inscription reads, "For the brave ones who change everything." HM 1923 HM. Her grandmother's initials were RS4 Rose Sullivan before she married grandfather. So who is HM? And why did they think someone would need to change everything? Natalie has never noticed this inscription before, despite wearing the bracelet dozens of times for special occasions. It's as if the words only became visible now. When she needed to see them most, she photographs the engraving with her phone and texts it to her mother. Mom, do you know what this inscription means? Who is HM? The response comes back immediately. Your great-grandmother, Helena Morrison. I'll call you. When her phone rings, her mother's voice is strange, excited but also nervous. Honey, where did you find that inscription? It was always there. Mom, I just never noticed it before. Her mother is quiet for a long moment. Helena Morrison was your great-grandmother's name before she married. But Natalie, that bracelet has been in our family for 70 years. I've cleaned it, repaired it, worn it myself. There was never any inscription on that clasp. Natalie looks down at the bracelet, her skin suddenly cold. What are you saying?
Damn.
Saying that either you're seeing things that aren't there, or that bracelet just revealed something it's been hiding for decades. And somewhere in the back of her mind, Natalie remembers fragments of stories her grandmother used to tell. Stories about Helena Morrison, who came to their small town in the 1920s with nothing but determination and a secret that changed everything. Stories, Natalie, always thought were just family legends. Until now, Thursday morning brings the worst humiliation. Yet Natalie arrives at school to find a crowd of parents gathered outside the main entrance. They're holding signs, professional-looking signs with bold lettering and colorful graphics. Protect our children from unstable teachers' emotional manipulation is not a lesson plan. Fire Natalie Rivers, she recognizes most of the faces. Parents of students she's taught, families she's helped with homework struggles and reading difficulties, people who invited her to birthday parties and graduation, celebrations. Now they're calling for her job. Margaret Blackwood stands at the center of the group, perfectly coiffed in her designer suit. Tyler's mother has always been formidable. Today she radiates cold fury. She spots Natalie approaching and raises her voice so everyone can hear. There she is. The woman who thinks children should witness adult tantrums, who believes manipulation and attention-seeking are appropriate responses to disappointment. The crowd turns. Cameras appear. Someone is live-streaming the confrontation. Natalie walks through the gauntlet with her head high, the pearl bracelet warm against her wrist. She doesn't respond to the shouted questions or accusations. But inside, her heart hammers against her. Ribs. Principal Davidson intercepts her at the door. I'm sorry, Natalie. You can't enter the building while there's a formal investigation. Investigation into what? Complaints about your fitness to teach, your emotional stability, your influence on children. She looks past him to see several school board members huddled in the lobby, including Robert Blackwood, Tyler's father. This is orchestrated, she says quietly. You know that, right? Davidson won't meet her eyes. I have to follow protocol. Outside, Margaret Blackwood addresses the growing crowd of parents and reporters. We will not allow our children to be taught by someone who lacks basic emotional regulation, someone who thinks public spectacles are acceptable. Behavior. The Blackwood family has supported this school for 20 years, and we will not stand by while an unstable individual corrupts young minds. Natalie drives home in a daze, but the sanctuary of her apartment doesn't last long. By noon, a county health inspector arrives at her building. Someone filed a complaint about unsanitary conditions in her unit. The inspection takes 2 hours and finds nothing, but her neighbors watch from their windows. The damage to her reputation spreads. At 3 p.m., her landlord calls. Natalie, I hate to do this, but I'm getting pressure from other tenants. They're concerned about having someone living here who's been in the news for unstable behavior. Mr. Peterson, you've known me for 3 years. Have I ever caused problems? It's not about what I think. It's about what's best for the building's community. Translation. The Blackwoods own the property management company that handles his building. That evening, Natalie sits in the Rosewood Manor parking lot. The venue where her humiliation began is closed on weekdays, but she has nowhere else to go. Her teaching career is suspended. Her apartment lease is in jeopardy. Her savings are dwindling. She's examining the pearl bracelet's mysterious inscription again. When someone taps on her car window, a woman in her 70s stands outside. Wearing a simple floral dress and a concerned expression, she gestures for Natalie to roll down the window. You're the young lady from Saturday, aren't you? The bride who handled that awful situation with such grace? Natalie nods, unsure whether to expect another confrontation. I'm Dorothy Pemberton. I work here at the Manor. I've been watching the news about what's happening to you, and I wanted you to know what those people are doing isn't right. Thank you, Natalie, says softly. Most people seem to think I deserved it. Dorothy studies her face carefully. May I ask? You something? That bracelet you're wearing? Where did it come from? Natalie touches the pearls instinctively. My grandmother. It's been in our family for generations. Dorothy's eyes widen. What was your grandmother's maiden name? Sullivan? But before that, her grandmother was Helena Morrison? Dorothy's hand flies to her chest. Helena Morrison? I knew it. I've been wondering, for 40 years, if I'd ever see that bracelet again. What do you mean? Dorothy looks around the empty parking lot, then back at Natalie. There are things about this place, about that bracelet, that you need to know. Things the Blackwood family would kill to keep secret. She glances toward the Manor's main building. Can you meet me here tomorrow evening, after dark? There's something I need to show you. The next day crawls by in isolation. The social media attacks intensify. Someone posts Natalie's address online with encouragement for people to let her know what they think of her behavior. She receives dozens of angry voicemails and emails. Most are generic insults, but some are specific enough to make her skin crawl. One message particularly chills her. You embarrassed the wrong family. Pack your bags and leave town, or we'll make sure you wish you had. By evening, she's questioning everything. Maybe running away to Portland isn't such a bad idea. Maybe some fights aren't worth fighting. But when she touches the pearl bracelet, warmth spreads up her arm. Not physical warmth, something deeper, like courage being transferred through generations. She drives to Rosewood Manor as darkness falls. Dorothy waits by a service entrance, holding a flashlight and a ring of old keys. Follow me, she whispers. And whatever you do, don't let anyone see us. They enter through a basement door Natalie has never noticed. The lower level of the manor is a maze of storage rooms and mechanical spaces. Dorothy leads her through narrow corridors with practiced familiarity. I've worked here for 43 years, Dorothy explains as they walk. Started as a cleaning girl when I was 16, worked my way up to event coordinator. I've seen 3 generations of Blackwood men run this place, and I've kept their secrets. They stop at a heavy wooden door marked Archives, Authorized Personnel Only. Dorothy unlocks it and motions Natalie inside. The room contains decades of documents, contracts, photographs, newspaper clippings, financial records, all organized in file cabinets that stretch from floor to ceiling. But it's the wall display that makes Natalie gasp. Photographs from the 1920s show the manor during its original construction. In several images, a striking woman in work clothes stands directing crews of men. She's wearing a familiar pearl bracelet. Helena Morrison, Dorothy says softly. Your great-grandmother. She didn't just know about this place, dear. She built it. What? Helena Morrison designed Rosewood Manor. Every arch, every window, every hidden passage. She was one of the most talented architects of her generation. The photos blur as Natalia's is filled with tears. Dorothy continues, pulling out a file folder thick with documents. But the Blackwood family has spent a century making sure no one remembers that. They've claimed credit for her work, erased her from the official records, and built their entire reputation on a lie. She hands Natalie a yellowed newspaper clipping from 1924. The headline reads, Mysterious female architect disappears after completing local manor. Helena Morrison vanished without a trace after Rosewood Manor was finished. Just like you're being driven away now. The Blackwood family destroys anyone who threatens their narrative. Dorothy's voice drops to a whisper, but Helena left something behind, something she hid in this building in case anyone ever needed proof of what really happened. And that bracelet you're wearing? It's not just jewelry. It's a key. Natalie stares at the pearl bracelet with new understanding. The warmth, the mysterious inscription, the way it seems to respond to her touch. A key to what? Dorothy smiles grimly. To bringing down the most powerful family in this town. Getting justice for every person they've destroyed over the past 100 years. But first, you need to decide if you're brave enough to see this through. Because once we open Helena's secret, there's no going back. And the Blackwood family has killed to protect their lives before. Natalie doesn't sleep that night. She sits in her apartment, staring at the documents Dorothy photocopied for her. Blueprints. In Helena Morrison's precise handwriting, instruction photographs showing her great-grandmother directing work crews, payment records proving Helena designed every detail of Rosewood Manor, and newspaper clippings documenting her mysterious disappearance. The pearl bracelet lies on the coffee table beside the papers, catching streetlight from the window. The inscription seems to glow in the darkness for the brave ones who change everything. But Natalie doesn't feel brave. She feels terrified. Her phone buzzes with another threatening text from an unknown number. Final warning. Leave town or face the consequences. The Blackwood family protects its own. Saturday morning brings a knock at her door. She peers through the peephole to see a sheriff's deputy holding an envelope. Natalie Rivers. You're being served with a restraining order. The papers are filed by Margaret Blackwood, claiming Natalie has been stalking and harassing the family. The order prohibits her from coming within 500 feet of any Blackwood family member or business, which includes half the town. The deputy's expression is sympathetic as he hands over the documents. I'm sorry, Miss Rivers. I know this whole situation is complicated. As he walks away, Natalie realizes she recognizes him. Deputy Anderson. His daughter was in her class 2 years ago. A sweet girl who struggled with reading until Natalie spent extra hours helping her. Now he's serving papers that could destroy her life. The restraining order makes local news by afternoon. The headline reads, Jilted teacher accused of stalking ex-fiance's family. The reporter interviews Margaret Blackwood outside her country club. We fear for our safety. This woman has shown a pattern of unstable behavior. First, the public spectacle. At our son's wedding venue, now following us around town, making threats. We had no choice but to seek legal protection. The lies are so bold, so convincing, that even Natalie starts to doubt her own memories. Did she drive by the Blackwood house? That one time? Yes, but only because it was on her route to the grocery store. Did she attend the school board meeting where they discussed her suspension? Yes, but she had every right to defend herself. Margaret Blackwood takes each innocent action and twists it into evidence of stalking. By Sunday, Natalie's bank account is frozen. Someone filed a complaint claiming she's been stealing from the school. The investigation will take weeks to resolve, but in the meantime, she has no access to her money. She has enough cash to last maybe a week. Her sister calls from Portland. Nat, please, just come here. You can start over. Get a teaching job where nobody knows about any of this. For the first time, running away sounds reasonable. I can't abandon everything Grandma Rose left me. All her stories about Helena Morrison, the bracelet, it's just jewelry, Natalie. Those are just stories. But even as she says the words, Natalie doesn't believe them. The bracelet isn't just jewelry. The stories aren't just family legends. Helena Morrison was real. Her disappearance was real. And somehow, across a century, she's calling to Natalie to finish what she started. That evening, Natalie returns to Rosewood Manor despite the restraining order. The building is technically owned by the Historical Society, not the Blackwoods directly. At least she hopes that legal distinction will protect her. Dorothy meets her at the service entrance again. This time she's not alone. An elderly man, with kind eyes and weathered hands, stands beside her. He's tall and lean, wearing work clothes despite his age. This is Frank Kowalski, Dorothy says. He's 86 years old and he has something to tell you. Frank steps forward, his voice shaky but determined. Miss Rivers, my grandfather worked construction in the 1920s. He was part of the crew that built this manor, under Helena Morrison's supervision. He pauses, gathering strength. My grandfather kept a journal, wrote in it every day until he died. Most of it is just work notes, but there are entries about Helena Morrison. About what really happened to her, Frank pulls a leather-bound book from his jacket pocket. The cover is cracked with age, the pages yellowed and brittle. Helena Morrison didn't disappear, he says quietly. She was murdered. By Charles Blackwood, Tyler's great-grandfather. My grandfather witnessed it. The words hit Natalie like physical blows. Why didn't he go to the police? Frank's laugh is bitter. Charles Blackwood owned the police, owned the mayor, owned half the county. My grandfather was just an immigrant laborer? Who would have believed him? He opens the journal to a bookmarked page and reads aloud. October 15th, 1924. Saw something terrible tonight. Mr. Blackwood came to the manor after dark, heard shouting from inside, then saw him carry something wrapped in canvas to his car. Helena Morrison never came to work again. When I asked about her, Mr. Blackwood said she left town. But I know what I saw. I know she's dead. Dorothy takes the journal gently. Frank's grandfather hid this for 60 years. When he finally told Frank the truth on his deathbed, Frank was too scared to do anything about it. The Blackwood family was still too powerful, but now, Frank says, looking directly at Natalie, maybe it's time for the truth. They spend the next hour going through more documents Dorothy has collected over the decades, evidence of the Blackwood's family's pattern of destroying anyone who threatens them. Business competitors who mysteriously went bankrupt after crossing. Charles Blackwood, a newspaper editor who died in a suspicious car accident after investigating Blackwood finances. City councilman who suffered a fatal heart attack just before a crucial vote on Blackwood development projects. Generation after generation. The Blackwood family has silenced opposition through intimidation, financial ruin, and worse. And now they're doing it to you, Dorothy says. Frank closes his grandfather's journal. But Helena Morrison was smart. She knew Charles Blackwood was dangerous. My grandfather's notes mention that she hid something in the manor before she died. Something that could expose the whole family. What kind of something? Frank shrugs. He called it her insurance policy. Documents, photographs, maybe recordings. Something Charles Blackwood would kill for. They believe the pearl bracelet is the key to finding Helena's hidden evidence. But they haven't been able. To locate the hiding place, Dorothy leads them through the archives room, to a wall covered with the manor's original blueprints. The plans are incredibly detailed, showing not just the building's structure, but also hidden passages and secret rooms. Helena Morrison wasn't just an architect. Dorothy explains. She was paranoid about security. This building has dozens of hidden spaces. She could have concealed evidence anywhere. Natalie studies the blueprints, the pearl bracelet growing warm on her wrist. The building is massive, with multiple levels and complex geometry. Finding a hiding place without more clues would take months. As they're about to leave, Frank touches Natalie's arm. There's something else. My grandfather wrote that Helena Morrison had a daughter, little girl she kept hidden because she wasn't married. When Helena disappeared, the child was sent away to relatives in another state. Natalie's heart stops. What was the daughter's name? Rose. Rose Morrison. Grandma Rose. Helena Morrison wasn't just her great-grandmother. She was her great-grandmother who died protecting secrets that could destroy the Blackwood family. And now, a century later, those secrets are calling to Natalie through a pearl bracelet that seems to have a mind of its own, outside the manor. As they prepare to part ways, Dorothy grabs Natalie's hand. Be careful, dear. The Blackwood family has gotten away with murder before. They won't hesitate to do it again. But as Natalie drives home, she's not thinking about danger. She's thinking about a little girl named Rose who grew up never knowing what happened to her mother, who lived her entire life believing Helena Morrison simply abandoned her. Grandma Rose died thinking her mother was a coward who ran away. But Helena Morrison wasn't a coward. She was a victim. And Natalie is going to prove it. Pause and tell us where you're watching from before the finale unfolds. Monday. Morning changes everything. Natalie wakes to find an envelope slipped under her apartment door. No postmark, no return address. Just her name written in elegant script across cream-colored paper. Inside is a single photograph. The image shows Helena Morrison standing in what appears to be a hidden room inside Rosewood Manor. She's placing a metal box inside a wall safe. Behind her, architectural drawings and documents cover every surface. On the back, someone has written in faded ink, "The truth waits where the roses bloom eternal." Natalie's hands shake as she examines the photograph. Helena Morrison looks exactly like the construction photos, but this image was clearly taken in secret. Someone else knew about her hiding place. Someone who wanted that knowledge preserved. Her phone rings. Dorothy's voice is urgent and excited. "Natalie, you need to get here immediately. Something extraordinary has happened." 20 minutes later, Natalie stands in Dorothy's small office at Rosewood Manor, staring at an opened wall safe she's never seen before. "I've worked in this building for 43 years, Dorothy says, her voice filled with wonder. "This safe has been hidden behind a false panel in my office wall. I discovered it this morning when I moved a filing cabinet. The safe is small, but deep, clearly designed for documents rather than valuables. It's completely empty now, but fresh. Scratches around the lock suggest it was recently opened. Someone knew this was here," Natalie realizes. Someone has been waiting for the right moment. Dorothy nods toward the photograph in Natalie's hand. "Where did you get that?" Natalie explains about the mysterious envelope. Dorothy studies the image carefully. This was taken in Helena Morrison's private office. It's on the 3rd floor, in a section of the building that's been sealed off for decades. Structural damage from a storm in the 1960s made it unsafe, or so they claimed. Dorothy's eyes narrow. The Blackwood family ordered that section closed, said it was too expensive to repair. But what if they just wanted to make sure no one went looking for Helena's secrets? They spend the morning researching the building's history, cross-referencing Dorothy's files with Frank Kowalski's grandfather's journal. The pattern becomes clear. Every few decades, and when someone gets too close to the truth about Helena Morrison, the Blackwood family takes action. They've sealed rooms, destroyed records, and silenced witnesses for a century. But they missed something. Frank arrives at noon with more revelations from his grandfather's journal. "My grandfather wrote about helping Helena Morrison install a special hiding place. Not in the main safe, but somewhere else. Somewhere only she would think to look." He reads from the journal. "Miss Morrison asked me to help her with carpentry work in her office. Said she needed a place to keep important papers safe from thieves. We built a hidden compartment behind the fireplace. She said if anything happened to her, someone in her family would know where to find it." Natalie touches the pearl bracelet instinctively. The warmth spreads up her arm like electricity. "She would know where to find it," she whispers. "The bracelet. It's not just a key to the safe. It's a map." Dorothy fetches the building's original blueprints. Helena Morrison's office is marked clearly on the 3rd floor plans, complete with detailed drawings of the fireplace and chimney system. But accessing the sealed section won't be easy. The Blackwood family has security cameras throughout the building, motion sensors, alarm systems. Unless you know the architect's secrets. Subtle markings on the blueprints that she's never noticed before. Helena Morrison designed service passages throughout the building, hidden corridors that connect different sections without using the main hallways. She built herself multiple escape routes, Dorothy realizes. They knew she was in danger. They spend the afternoon planning their approach. The service passages are narrow and haven't been maintained in decades, but they provide access to the sealed section without triggering modern security systems. Frank offers to help despite his age. "This is about my grandfather, too. He carried the guilt of staying silent for 60 years. It's time to make that right." As evening approaches, Natalie feels the weight of what they're attempting. It's breaking into a sealed section of the building, searching for evidence of a murder that happened a century ago, challenging the most powerful family in town. But when she touches the pearl bracelet, courage flows through her like warm honey. Helena Morrison was brave enough to stand up to Charles Blackwood, brave enough to hide evidence that could destroy him, brave enough to die protecting the truth. The least Natalie can do is be brave enough to find it. Dorothy locks the manor's main doors at 6 p.m. After the last tour group departs, the building settles into evening quiet, filled with shadows and the whisper of old secrets. They meet in the archives room as darkness falls. Dorothy brings flashlights and the original blueprints. Frank carries his grandfather's journal and a toolkit. Natalie wears the pearl bracelet and carries the mysterious photograph. The service passage entrance is hidden behind a bookshelf in the archives room. Helena Morrison disguised it as decorative wood paneling, but the blueprints show the precise location of the concealed door. Dorothy presses a specific pattern of carved roses, and the panel swings inward to reveal a narrow corridor. "Brilliant woman," Frank murmurs as they enter the passage. She thought of everything. The corridor's dusty and cramped, clearly unused for decades. Their flashlight beams reveal stone walls, and timber supports that date to the building's original construction. They follow the passage for nearly 50 feet before reaching a junction. According to the blueprints, the left path leads to Helena Morrison's office. The passage ends at another concealed door, this one opening into a room that takes Natalie's breath away. Helena Morrison's office is a time capsule. Dust covers everything, but the space remains exactly as she left it in 1924. A massive desk sits beneath tall windows. Bookshelves line the walls, filled with architectural texts and botanical references. Framed drawings show her designs for buildings across the region, and in the center of the far wall stands an elaborate stone fireplace. Natalie approaches it slowly, pearl bracelet growing warmer with each step. The fireplace is beautiful, carved with intricate patterns of roses and vines. But it's the pattern that makes her gasp. The carved roses match the pearl arrangement on her bracelet exactly. She places the bracelet against the mantelpiece, lining the pearl pattern with the stone carving. For a moment, nothing happens. Then the entire fireplace rotates inward with a soft grinding of stone against stone. Behind it lies Helena Morrison's true secret, a small room filled with filing cabinets, photographs, and recording equipment decades ahead of its time. Frank whistles softly. She was recording conversations. In 1924, Edison cylinders line the shelves, each one labeled in Helena Morrison's precise handwriting. Dates, names, subjects. A complete archive of Charles Blackwood's business dealings and personal conversations. Dorothy opens one of the filing cabinets. Inside are contracts, photographs, and correspondence proving that Charles Blackwood built his fortune through fraud, extortion, and worse. But it's the final cylinder that changes everything. The label reads, October 14th, 1924, Charles Blackwood's confession. Natalie's hands tremble as she places the cylinder on Helena Morrison's antique recording device. The mechanism still works, preserved by the dry air of the hidden room. Charles Blackwood's voice fills the space. Cold and arrogant, even across a century. "You think you're so clever, Miss Morrison. But you don't understand who you're dealing with. I've killed before, and I'll kill again. No one threatens the Blackwood name," Helena Morrison's voice responds, frightened but defiant. "I have evidence of everything. Your fraud, your bribes, your threats. If anything happens to me, people will know the truth." Blackwood laughs. "Who would believe you? A woman architect? No, not married mother? You're nothing. And after tonight, you'll be less than nothing." The recording continues for several more minutes, documenting threats, confessions, and ultimately, Helena Morrison's murder in chilling detail. Dorothy sinks into a chair, overwhelmed. This is it. This is proof that the Blackwood fortune was built on murder and lies. But Frank looks worried. "We have the evidence, but how do we use it? The Blackwood family still owns half this town. They'll claim the recordings are fake. They'll destroy us before we can get this to the right people." Natalie studies the room, thinking. Helena Morrison didn't just hide evidence. She created an insurance policy. But she couldn't have known that her great-great-granddaughter would be the one to find it, unless she could. The pearl bracelet pulses warmly against her wrist, and suddenly Natalie understands. Helena Morrison wasn't just an architect, she was a visionary who understood that justice sometimes takes generations to achieve. She built this room not just for her own protection, but for the day when someone with her blood would return to finish what she started. And that day is now. The Blackwood family strikes first, Tuesday morning. Natalie wakes to police sirens outside her apartment building. Through her window, she sees squad cars, an ambulance, and a crowd of neighbors gathered on the sidewalk. Her landlord, Mr. Peterson, stands in handcuffs beside a police cruiser. She throws on clothes and rushes downstairs to find Detective Williams interviewing witnesses. She recognizes him from high school. They graduated the same year. What's happening? Williams looks uncomfortable. Mr. Peterson has been arrested for tax evasion and fraud. Anonymous tip came in with evidence of falsified rental income. Reports going back 5 years. Natalie's blood runs cold. This is about me, isn't it? Williams glances around, then lowers his voice. Natalie, you need to be careful. This investigation came down from very high up. People with serious influence are pushing hard, as if summoned by his words. Margaret Blackwood appears at the edge of the crowd. She's dressed impeccably, her smile sharp as broken glass. Miss Rivers, she calls out sweetly. Such a shame about your landlord. I hope this doesn't affect your living situation. The threat is crystal clear. Cross us, and everyone around you suffers. Within hours, the news spreads through social media. Photos of Peterson in handcuffs are paired with images of Natalie from her wedding disaster. The narrative writes itself. Unstable woman destroys everyone she touches. But Dorothy calls with urgent news that changes everything. The Historical Society is hosting their annual fundraising gala this Saturday. At Rosewood Manor, 500 of the most influential people in the region will be there, including the governor, state legislators, and major media figures. More importantly, Margaret and Robert Blackwood are the event's honorary chairs. It's perfect, Dorothy says. We'll have everyone who matters in one place, with all the media coverage we need to expose the truth. But Natalie hesitates. Going to the gala would violate the restraining order. She'd be arrested the moment she appeared. Unless she had every right to be there, Frank arrives with the solution buried in his grandfather's journal. According to this entry from 1924, Helena Morrison never sold Rosewood Manor to Charles Blackwood. She was murdered before the final transfer papers were signed. He shows them a photocopy of the original deed found among Helena's hidden documents. The property legally belongs to Helena Morrison's heirs, which means it belongs to Natalie. Dorothy's eyes widen. If you're the rightful owner, you can't be trespassing. The restraining order becomes meaningless on your own property, but proving ownership will require lawyers, court filings, and time they don't have, unless they can force the issue publicly. Wednesday brings an unexpected ally, Jessica Chen. Journalist from the state capitol arrives at Natalie's apartment. She's young, ambitious, and unimpressed by small-town power structures. I've been following your story, she says. Something smells wrong about how you're being treated. The Blackwood family's response seems disproportionate to a simple wedding. Cancellation. Natalie studies Jessica carefully. If the Blackwoods own the local media, what makes you different? I work for the Capital Tribune. My editor doesn't take orders from provincial families, no matter how much money they have. They spend hours going through the evidence. Dorothy and Frank have gathered. Jessica's excitement builds as she examines Helena Morrison's recordings and documents. This is Pulitzer Prize material. Century-old murder covered up by one of the region's most powerful families. Justice delayed, but not denied. But Jessica warns that publishing the story will put them all in danger. The Blackwood family has connections everywhere. Police, courts, government officials. They'll fight this with everything they have, which is exactly why they need to go public in the most dramatic way possible. That's when Natalie proposes her plan. The gala is being held in Helena Morrison's building, using Helena Morrison's architectural designs, while the Blackwood family claims credit for everything she created. Saturday night, at the peak of the event, Natalie will walk into that ballroom and reclaim what's rightfully hers. With 500 witnesses and a room full of media, Jessica loves the audacity of it. But how do you get inside without being arrested? Dorothy smiles grimly. Leave that to me. Thursday and Friday pass in a blur of preparation. Jessica works with colleagues to verify the authenticity of Helena Morrison's recordings. Audio experts confirm that Edison cylinders are genuine 1920s recordings, untampered and undoctored. Frank researches property law, building a legal case for Natalie's ownership claim. Dorothy makes arrangements for Saturday night, calling in 40 years of favors from colleagues throughout the Historical Society, and Natalie practices her speech. The words that will finally give Helena Morrison the justice she deserved. But the Blackwood family is an idol. Friday afternoon, Natalie receives a visit from a man in an expensive suit who identifies himself as the Blackwoods' attorney, Miss Rivers. My clients are prepared to offer you a substantial settlement to resolve this situation quietly. $500,000 in exchange for a signed agreement never to contact any member of the Blackwood family again. Half. $1 million would solve all her problems. A new apartment, new job, new life, somewhere far from this town's judgment. But it would also mean abandoning Helena Morrison's memory forever. I'm not interested, Natalie says firmly. The attorney's expression hardens. Then perhaps you'd be interested to know that we've filed charges against you for breaking and entering. You were seen on security cameras entering restricted areas of Rosewood Manor. That's impossible. We disabled the cameras. He smiles coldly. Not all of them. We have footage of you, Mrs. Pemberton, and Mr. Kowalski accessing sealed sections of the building. Felony charges will be filed Monday morning unless you accept our offer. After he leaves, Natalie sits in her apartment, overwhelmed by despair. They've thought of everything. Even if she proves her ownership of the manor, the criminal charges will destroy her credibility. Will believe the word of a woman arrested for burglary? That evening, as she holds the pearl bracelet and considers surrender, she receives one final mysterious message, another envelope under her door. This one containing a single key and a note in the same elegant handwriting as before. Saturday night, service entrance, midnight. The truth will not be silenced. Stares at the key, her heart pounding. Someone else is involved in this. Someone who's been helping from the shadows, leaving clues and opening doors. Someone who wants Helena Morrison's story told as much as she does. As Saturday evening approaches, Natalie makes her choice. She's not running. She's not hiding. She's not taking their money. She's walking into that gala, in front of 500 people. She's telling the truth about what happened to Helena Morrison, even if it destroys her, even if it costs everything, because some things matter more than safety. Some things matter more than money, and Helena Morrison's story matters more than Natalie's fear. The pearl bracelet seems to pulse with approval as she gets dressed. For the most important night of her life, Saturday night. The Blackwood family will finally face justice, and Natalie Rivers will make sure the whole world is watching when it happens. The Historical Society Gala is in full swing when Natalie arrives at Rosewood Manor's service entrance at midnight. Through the windows, she can see 500 guests in evening wear, dancing beneath crystal chandeliers in the ballroom Helena Morrison designed. The Blackwood family holds court at the center of it all, accepting praise for their family's architectural legacy. The mysterious key works perfectly in the service door lock. Natalie steps inside, wearing her grandmother's vintage black evening gown and the pearl bracelet that started everything. She carries a leather satchel containing Helena Morrison's most damning evidence. Dorothy waits in the service corridor, dressed as catering staff. Everything's ready, she whispers urgently. Jessica has her camera crew positioned. Frank is in the balcony with the audio equipment. Security thinks you're part of the catering team. They move through Helena Morrison's hidden passages toward the ballroom. As they walk, Dorothy explains the final pieces of their plan. At midnight, there's going to be a special presentation about the manor's history. Margaret Blackwood will give a speech about her family's architectural contributions to the community. That's when you make your entrance. Natalie's heart pounds as they reach the concealed door that opens behind the ballroom's main stage. Through A small window, she can see the crowd of influential guests. Governor Williams stands near the front, along with state legislators and business leaders. Media representatives from major networks hold cameras and microphones, and in the center of it all, Margaret Blackwood approaches the podium to begin her speech. "Ladies and gentlemen," Margaret says, her voice carrying clearly through the sound, "System, welcome to this magnificent manor, a testament to the vision and craftsmanship of the Blackwood family." Natalie's hands clench into fists. For over a century, the Blackwood name has been synonymous with architectural excellence in our region. This building, designed and constructed under the guidance of my husband's great-grandfather Charles Blackwood, represents the pinnacle of 1920s design. The lies flow smoothly from Margaret's lips. She describes Charles Blackwood as a visionary, a pioneer, a man who transformed their small town through his architectural genius. Not one word about Helena Morrison. Margaret continues, "The Blackwood family has always believed in giving back to the community. That's why we're proud to announce a new wing dedicated to preserving our architectural heritage. The Charles Blackwood Memorial Gallery showcased the genius that created this magnificent space." Applause fills the ballroom. Cameras flash. Crowd of dignitaries nods approvingly. "This is it," Dorothy whispers. "Go." Natalie takes a deep breath, touches the pearl bracelet for luck, and steps through the concealed door onto the stage. The ballroom falls silent. 500. Pairs of eyes turn toward her. Cameras swivel in her direction. Margaret Blackwood's face drains of color. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Natalie says, her voice carrying clearly through the microphone system Dorothy has secretly activated. "But there's something you all need to know about this building's true history. Security." Guards start moving toward the stage, but Natalie raises her hand to stop them. "My name is Natalie Rivers. I'm a descendant of Helena Morrison, the real architect who designed Rosewood Manor, and I'm here to expose a century of lies." Margaret Blackwood's shock gives way to fury. "How dare you? Security, remove this woman immediately. She's violating a court order." But Governor Williams holds up his hand. "Let her speak. I want to hear what she has to say." Natalie opens her leather satchel and removes Helena Morrison's photographs. She holds them up for the crowd to see. These photographs show Helena Morrison designing and overseeing construction of this manor in 1924, not Charles Blackwood, Helena Morrison. She points to the intricate ceiling patterns above their heads. Every arch, every window, every hidden passage in this building was designed by a brilliant woman who was murdered for refusing to let the Blackwood family steal credit for her work. The crowd erupts in whispers. Cameras focus on the photographs. Margaret Blackwood frantically signals to security, but they're blocked by reporters pushing forward for a better view. Natalie continues, her voice growing stronger with each word. "Helena Morrison was a visionary, architect decades ahead of her time. She was also my great-great-grandmother. And on October 14th, 1924, Charles Blackwood murdered her in this very building." "That's enough," Robert Blackwood shouts from the crowd. "This woman is delusional. She's been harassing our family for weeks." But Natalie is ready for their denials. Frank appears in the balcony, operating Helena Morrison's antique recording equipment. The century-old Edison cylinder begins to play, its sound amplified through the ballroom speakers. Charles Blackwood's voice fills the space, cold and threatening. "You think you're so clever, Miss Morrison, but you don't understand who you're dealing with. I've killed before, and I'll kill again." "No one threatens the Blackwood name," gasps echo through the ballroom. Cameras capture every moment as Helena Morrison's terrified voice responds, "I have evidence of everything. Your fraud, your bribes, your threats. If anything happens to me, people will know the truth." Blackwood's laugh is chilling even across a century. "Who would believe you? A woman architect? An unmarried mother? You're nothing? And after tonight, you'll be less than nothing?" The recording continues for several more minutes, documenting threats, confessions, and ultimately the planning of Helena Morrison's murder in horrifying detail. The ballroom is dead silent except for the ghostly voices from 1924. When the recording ends, Natalie removes more documents from her satchel. held evidence of the Blackwood family's crimes for over a century: fraud, extortion, bribery, and murder. She knew someone would eventually come forward to seek justice. She holds up the original property deed. According to this legal document, Helena Morrison never sold Rosewood Manor to Charles Blackwood. She was murdered before the sale could be completed, which means this building legally belongs to her heirs. Natalie looks directly at Margaret Blackwood, which means it belongs to me. The crowd erupts. Reporters shout questions. Security guards freeze, unsure whether to arrest the apparent owner of the building they're supposed to protect. Governor Williams steps forward, his political instincts recognizing a historic moment. Mrs. Blackwood, he says formally, "Do you have any response to these allegations?" Margaret Blackwood's composure finally cracks. Her voice shakes with rage and desperation. She's lying. Those recordings are fake. She's a disturbed woman seeking revenge because my son had the good sense to leave her at the altar. But the damage is done. Jessica Chen and her media colleagues are already broadcasting live footage. Social media explodes with videos of the confrontation. The story spreads beyond the region to national news networks. Robert Blackwood tries a different approach, appealing to the crowd's prejudices. Are you really going to believe the word of an emotionally unstable? It's a teacher over a family that served this community for 4 generations? But Frank Kowalski stands up in the balcony, his grandfather's journal in his hands. "My grandfather witnessed Helena Morrison's murder," he calls out. "He kept detailed records because he knew someday the truth would matter." Frank reads from the journal, describing Charles Blackwood carrying a canvas-wrapped body from the manor on October 15, 1924. More voices join the chorus. Dorothy steps forward with decades of evidence she's collected. Other manor employees confirm details about the sealed sections and covered-up history. One by one, the Blackwood family's supporters begin to distance themselves. Politicians who built careers on Blackwood money suddenly discover urgent business. Elsewhere, the tide has turned completely as police arrive to sort out the chaos. Natalie stands on the stage where Helena Morrison's killer once celebrated his crimes. The pearl bracelet feels warm against her wrist, as if her great-great-grandmother is finally at peace. Margaret Blackwood makes one final desperate attempt at damage control. "Even if any of this is true," she shouts, "it happened 100 years ago. You can't destroy our family for something our ancestor did." Natalie's response is quiet, but carries clearly through the suddenly silent ballroom. "You've spent a century profiting from murder, building your fortune on a woman's grave, destroying anyone who threatened to expose the truth." She looks around the room at the influential crowd that once kowtowed. To Blackwood power, Helena Morrison didn't just design this building. She designed justice that would outlast her killers. As the authorities begin making arrests and sorting through evidence, Natalie realizes that her great-great-grandmother's plan worked. Perfectly, the truth has finally been told. The Blackwood family's century of lies has been exposed, and Helena Morrison's architectural masterpiece will forever bear her name instead of theirs. Justice, it turns out, really was worth waiting for. 3 months later, Natalie stands in what was once Margaret Blackwood's office, now transformed into the Helena Morrison Research Center. Sunlight streams through tall windows onto walls lined with her great-great-grandmother's architectural drawings, photographs, and awards. The pearl bracelet rests in a place of honor behind glass, its inscription finally visible to the world. The transformation has been extraordinary. Within days of the gala confrontation, forensic experts confirmed the authenticity of Helena Morrison's recordings. Federal investigators reopened cold cases spanning decades, finding patterns of Blackwood family corruption that shocked even seasoned prosecutors. Robert Blackwood was arrested on charges ranging from tax evasion to witness intimidation. Margaret faced conspiracy charges for her role in covering up evidence. Their son Tyler, attempting to distance himself from the scandal, filed for divorce from his new wife and fled to Europe. The family's business empire collapsed within weeks. Banks foreclosed on properties, partners severed contracts, employees scattered to find work elsewhere. But for Natalie, the most meaningful change was personal. Principal Davidson visited her apartment on a Tuesday morning. Hat literally in hand, The school board voted unanimously to reinstate you with full back pay and benefits. We also want to offer you the position of curriculum director, if you're interested. More apologies followed. Mrs. Henderson brought Emma to see her, the little girl's face bright with excitement to have her favorite teacher back. The bank not only approved her mortgage application, but offered terms so favorable, she suspected political pressure from above. Her hairdresser called to reschedule. The yoga studio begged her to return. Even her landlord, released from jail when the charges were revealed as fabricated, offered her a permanent lease at reduced rent. But the real vindication came from unexpected sources. Dorothy appears in the doorway of the research center, carrying a stack of newspapers from around the world, still making headlines, she says with satisfaction. Look at this one from London. American teacher solves century-old murder, exposes powerful family's dark legacy. The international attention has been overwhelming. Documentary crews arrived from 3 different networks. Publishers competed to buy rights to Helena Morrison's story. Universities offered Natalie honorary degrees for her historical research. But the recognition that matters most happened yesterday. The state legislature passed a resolution, officially recognizing Helena Morrison as Rosewood Manor's architect. A bronze plaque now marks the building's entrance. Helena Morrison Manor, designed by Helena Morrison. 1898 to 1924, visionary architect and pioneer. For the brave ones who change everything. The governor himself unveiled the plaque at a ceremony attended by hundreds of supporters. Dorothy cried openly as Helena Morrison's name was finally carved in stone where it belonged. Frank Kowalski, now 87, spoke about his grandfather's courage in preserving the truth for future generations. My grandfather used to say that secrets have weight. They get heavier every year you carry them, but truth has wings. The ceremony also revealed the identity of Natalie's mysterious helper. An elderly woman approached the podium with the assistance of a walker. Her voice was soft but clear as she addressed the crowd. My name is Patricia Morrison Webb. Helena Morrison was my great-aunt. I've been waiting 70 years for someone brave enough to tell her story. Patricia explained that Helena Morrison's family had preserved documents and photographs for generations, always hoping someone would eventually seek justice. When I heard about Natalie's situation, I knew she was the one Helena had been waiting for. I left the clues, opened the doors, and provided the key. My great-aunt designed more than just buildings. She designed hope for the future. The revelation that Helena Morrison's own family had been secretly supporting the investigation from the beginning brought the crowd to tears, but the most powerful moment came when Patricia handed Natalie a sealed envelope. Helena Morrison left instructions that this should only be opened when justice was finally achieved. I've carried it for my entire adult life. Waiting for this day, inside was a letter in Helena Morrison's precise handwriting, dated October 13, 1920, for the day before her murder. To my descendant who finds this truth, you have carried my burden and made it your strength. You have faced powerful enemies and emerged victorious. You have proven that justice delayed is not justice denied. I designed Rosewood Manor to last centuries, but I designed my legacy to last forever. In you, that legacy lives on. Build something beautiful. Fight for what's right. Never let anyone silence your voice. The future belongs to the brave. With love across time. Helena Morrison, as Natalie reads the letter aloud to the crowd, she feels a connection spanning generations. Helena Morrison's courage lives on in her blood, just as her architectural genius lives on in stone and steel. The ceremony concludes with the establishment of the Helena Morrison Foundation, dedicated to supporting women in architecture and investigating historical injustices. Natalie accepted the position as foundation director, leaving her teaching career to pursue work that honors her great-great-grandmother's memory. Today, as she arranges documents in the research center, she reflects on how completely her life has changed. 6 months ago, she was a heartbroken teacher, abandoned at the altar by a coward. Now she's the director of a major foundation, owner of a historic landmark, and author of a best-selling book about uncovering family secrets. More importantly, she's found her purpose, Dorothy knocks on the office door. "There's someone here to see you." Detective Williams enters, holding a thick folder. He looks different than he did during the investigation, lighter somehow, as if a weight has been lifted. "I wanted to give you this personally," he says, handing her the folder. The final investigation report. Helena Morrison's case has been officially solved and closed. The report is hundreds of pages thick, documenting every piece of evidence, every witness statement, every forensic analysis that confirmed what Natalie already knew. Helena Morrison was murdered by Charles Blackwood on October 15, 1924. The crime was covered up by local authorities, who were either bribed or intimidated. The Blackwood family spent a century profiting from murder, while destroying anyone who threatened to expose the truth. Williams sits in the chair across from her desk. "I owe you an apology, Natalie. My department failed Helena Morrison in 1924, and we almost failed you this year. We let powerful people intimidate us into ignoring evidence." He pauses, looking out the window at the manor's beautiful gardens. "But you didn't let them win. You fought for truth when everyone else was too scared or too corrupted to care. You showed us what real courage looks like." As Williams leaves, Natalie notices the folder contains one final surprise: a handwritten note from the police chief. The Natalie Rivers conference room has been dedicated in the police station to remind future officers that courage comes in many forms. "Thank you for showing us what justice really means." The recognition is gratifying, but what brings Natalie the most peace is simpler. Every evening, she locks up the Helena Morrison Research Center. She passes the portrait of her great-great-grandmother that now hangs in the main hallway. Helena Morrison's painted eyes seem to twinkle with satisfaction, as if she was finally able to rest. The pearl bracelet may be safely displayed behind glass now, but Natalie can still feel its warmth whenever she thinks about the courage that runs in her family's blood. Helena Morrison designed buildings that would last centuries, but she designed something even more enduring. A legacy of justice that no amount of money or power could destroy, and that legacy will continue long after the last stone of Rosewood Manor crumbles to dust. 1 year later, the question that started this story echoes through the Helena Morrison manor as another bride prepares for her wedding day. What would you do if the person you trusted most shattered your dreams in front of hundreds of people? But this bride's answer is different than Natalie's was. "I'd remember that some dreams are meant to be broken, so better ones can take their place." Natalie adjusts her simple ivory dress in the mirror of what was once Helena Morrison's office. Today, she's marrying Detective Williams, not the man who served her papers, but the man who came to apologize and stayed to help her heal. Their relationship grew slowly, built on mutual respect rather than desperate need. He admired her courage. She appreciated his honesty about his department's failures, and when he proposed 3 months ago, he did it with Helena Morrison's pearl bracelet in his hands. "Your great-great-grandmother designed this manor to last forever," he said, kneeling in the research center. "Will you design a future with me?" The wedding today is small, 50 guests instead of 300. People who matter instead of people who are supposed to matter. Dorothy serves as matron of honor. Frank as the officiant despite his lack of clergy credentials. And the governor granted him special permission, calling it a recognition of his family's service to justice. Patricia Morrison Webb sits in the front row, Helena Morrison's living connection, to witness this moment of joy where once there was only tragedy, as Natalie walks down the aisle. She passes the portrait of Helena Morrison that now hangs in the manor's main hallway. Her great-great-grandmother's painted eyes seem to sparkle with approval. The ceremony takes place in the ballroom where Natalie once exposed a century of lies. But today, the space is filled with truth, love, and hope instead of corruption and fear. Frank's voice carries clearly as he begins. "The ceremony we gathered today not just to witness a wedding, but to celebrate the triumph of courage over fear, truth over lies, and love over betrayal. Helena Morrison designed this building to last centuries. But Natalie Rivers proved that some legacies last forever. The vows they exchange are simple, but profound. Williams promises to stand beside her in all her battles for justice. Whether they take days or decades to resolve, Natalie promises to build something beautiful together. Just as Helena Morrison would have wanted, as they kiss, sealing their marriage. The pearl bracelet catches sunlight streaming through the windows. Helena Morrison designed for just a moment, Natalie feels a presence in the room. It's not threatening or sorrowful, but peaceful and proud. Helena Morrison's work is finally complete. After the ceremony, guests gather in the gardens for a reception. Catered by the local businesses that once shunned Natalie, the bank president serves cake. Her former landlord pours champagne. Principal Davidson gives a toast about second chances and moral courage, but the most meaningful moment comes when Emma Henderson, now 9 years old, approaches Natalie with a handmade card. "Miss Rivers," she says shyly, "I made this for you." The card shows a drawing of Natalie in a wedding dress, standing beside a building labeled Helena Morrison Manor. Above them, a woman with angel wings watches protectively. "That's your great-great-grandmother," Emma explains. "My mom says she's proud of you." Natalie kneels to hug the child who once rejected her on her mother's orders. Some wounds heal completely, leaving only wisdom behind as evening approaches and guests begin to leave. Natalie and William stand alone in the ballroom where their story really began. "Any regrets?" he asks, taking her hand. She looks around the space that was once filled with lies and corruption, now transformed into a center for justice and truth. "Only one," she says. "I wish Helena Morrison could see what her legacy became." "I think she can," Williams replies softly. They walk hand in hand through the manor's corridors. Past photographs documenting Helena Morrison's architectural genius and displays showing the foundation's work supporting women in male-dominated fields. In the research center, volunteers are preparing for tomorrow's school group visit. Children from across the region come to learn about Helena Morrison's story and what it means to fight for truth. The pearl bracelet sits in its place of honor behind glass, its inscription visible to every visitor, "For the brave ones who change everything." But its real power isn't in the display case. It's in the courage that flows through generations. From Helena Morrison to Rose Sullivan to Natalie Rivers and beyond. It's in the understanding that justice delayed is not justice denied. It's long. As someone is brave enough to seek it, it's in the knowledge that truth has weight, and power that no amount of money or influence can overcome. As Natalie and Williams leave the manor that night, she touches the window where she once saw a mysterious light. Now she understands what she witnessed. Helena Morrison wasn't haunting the building. She was waiting. Waiting for someone with her blood, her courage to finish what she started. Waiting for justice to finally arrive, no matter how long it took. Waiting for proof that some legacies are stronger than death. The question that started this story was, what would you do if the person you trusted most shattered your dreams in front of hundreds of people? But the real question is deeper. What would you do if you discovered that your greatest heartbreak was actually the first step toward your true purpose? Natalie Rivers learned that some dreams are meant to be broken, so better ones can take their place. She learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right despite the fear. She learned that justice might take generations to achieve, but it's always worth fighting for. And she learned that the most important legacy isn't what you build, but what you inspire others to build after you're gone. Helena Morrison designed buildings that would last centuries, but through Natalie, she designed something even more enduring. Proof that truth, courage, and justice are the strongest forces in the world, and no amount of power, money, or influence can destroy them forever. Because somewhere in every generation, there will always be someone brave enough to change everything. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe. Because stories like this remind us that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary justice when they refuse to give up on what's right. And sometimes, the greatest victories come to those who are brave enough to wait for them.